In this video, I'm going to talk about my struggle to get over mast cell activation syndrome, a condition that started affecting my life once I got off benzodiazepines. If you are struggling with benzo withdrawal and would like to speak to someone, I'm now offering coaching services. It's important for me to note that I am not a doctor or a medical professional, and nowhere in my videos or in my coaching am I offering medical advice. If you would like to speak to me, just send me an email at lifeafterbenzos@gmail.com. I have priced the sessions to be particularly affordable, as I know many of us are already burdened with many other costs.
Well, guys, my unruly mast cells just do not want to get in line. I've run this experiment for more than a month now, in which I stopped taking all the supplements I was taking to help with MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome, which I developed during benzo withdrawal or upon cessation of benzodiazepines. I don't know if there was some kind of delayed fuse with that because I had so many other symptoms going on at the time, but it was not long after I jumped off that I stopped taking benzos that I developed MCAS symptoms. And I've mentioned in previous videos my most notable symptoms were congestion, a lot of sinus issues, post-nasal drip, sometimes headaches, my ears blocking up, sometimes tinnitus. I've had issues with air hunger, which air hunger can be tied to anxiety, and anxiety can also be tied to the release of some of these chemical mediators when our mast cells degranulate. Basically, when our mast cells go haywire and short circuit and start reacting to a threat that's not there, the chemical mediators that are released can cause a lot of the same symptoms that are mentioned directly with benzo withdrawal. But the thing for me, the kind of bellwether symptom, has been the sinus and nasal congestion, because that one does not overlap with some of the more direct benzo withdrawal symptoms. All of these symptoms I've been dealing with. They improved dramatically when I went on a very restrictive low histamine diet, and I was able to ease up on that diet a bit, make it a little bit less restrictive when I started taking supplements. And I made a video about the supplements I was taking. They included quercetin, diamine oxidase, the enzyme that breaks down histamine, and a number of others, and you can check out that previous video. I stopped taking these. It was not totally by design. I had a supply issue. I was running out of them, and I wanted to stop taking the supplements anyway as an experiment to see where I'm at, because the hope has always been that I could possibly get over this MCAS, even though for most people it's a chronic condition that gets worse over time. It's progressive typically. My hope has always been that because I developed it after benzo withdrawal, and it was not something I was dealing with my whole life, or even at any time before benzo withdrawal, I thought there was a chance for me to possibly get over it. And that doesn't seem to be the case. So the last video I made where I was a week out, things were going more or less okay. There was not a substantial difference. Now being more than a month out and not really making changes to my diet, so my diet was more or less the same. I would say it trended towards a low histamine diet, but by all means there were foods that I had reintroduced since started taking the supplements. And now I've really noticed a lot of the symptoms coming back, including sometimes tachycardia, racing heart, even air hunger, which is linked to one of the mediators that's released from mast cell activation syndrome, and then big time with the nasal congestion, the post-nasal drip, the headaches, and all this other stuff. Even some gut issues. The other day I woke up and it was like I had benzo belly. This was discouraging to say the least. And I even noticed a few things that were not really happening at any point before. Some people react really strongly to intense physical exercise. I've been part of this pickup basketball game for a little while now. And when I played the other day, afterwards, I was completely flushed. It looked like I was having a heart attack or something, and that lasted for hours. I experienced all sorts of my regular MCAS symptoms, but also things like joint pain. I woke up in the middle of the night and my it was like I could barely open my hand. I could barely make a fist. It was so painful. You know, there's obviously some joint pains to be expected as a 39-year-old guy thinking he can still play basketball. But this was beyond that. There were parts of, parts that were not even really implicated in the basketball that were, it's like someone had bashed them with a hammer or something. Joint pain is a symptom of mast cell activation syndrome for a lot of people. The tide's really coming up here, as you can possibly see from this video. I did not look at the tide table when I came out this morning. But anyway, it's otherwise very lovely. Even with the tide, it's actually quite lovely. So this bout of intense physical exercise brought on a round of symptoms as well. Now, during this whole time, I've still been taking antihistamines. I've been taking cetirizine, 5 milligrams in the morning, 5 milligrams in the evening, 12 hours apart. And I'm scared to think about what things would be like if I wasn't at least taking those antihistamines. This is like my last line of defense, those antihistamines. So I'm going to be trying to get back on some of these supplements, try to get a new supply of them, see if someone can mule them over from the States, or figure out maybe someone at an embassy here who has diplomatic pouch that I can send it. And in the meantime, I'm going to be really not entirely restricting my diet, not going back to like the original elimination diet, but I'm going to be restricting my diet a bit more. And it's discouraging. I mean, there's not much I can do about it. And I've gone into it with a really positive attitude, thinking that this was something I really could overcome. I really believed that. You might say there was there might have been some seeds of doubt in my head somewhere. I honestly don't believe that there were, but you could always say subconsciously I had some doubts, and maybe these doubts are playing into my symptoms, that, the brain being as suggestive as it is, that I'm actually provoking some of these symptoms. Yeah, I mean, I can't, I can't completely rule that out, but, when you wake up at 3 a.m. and your nose is completely blocked, and, you've got a headache, and you feel like you're in the middle of like a wild sinus infection, and all you did was had a dinner that might have had a few tomatoes in it, well, then it becomes a little bit harder to grapple with the idea that I might be provoking the symptoms by the thoughts in my head. At the end of the day, this is something, just like I've had to accept a overly sensitized nervous system, this is just something I'm going to have to accept. There's someone that follows this channel that I correspond with quite regularly, that I shared with him one time. I have a friend who has a cerebral spinal fluid leak, and it's turned into a permanent condition because they can't patch it. She's been to the best specialists, and she ended up with this leak because of a lumbar puncture gone wrong, and it was kind of a freak thing. She had some other conditions that made it easier for the lumbar puncture to go wrong, but she is now she's a chronic sufferer of this cerebral spinal fluid leak, and it makes it so she can't be upright for more than 15-20 minutes at a time, until she has excruciating pain because her brain actually starts sagging in her skull because there's not enough fluid around it. And she was someone that traveled all the time. She was someone that was constantly on the move. She was very nomadic. She worked from anywhere. She had websites she was running and all sorts of writing projects she was doing. And now she's basically housebound. It's challenging for her to leave the house, and even within her house, there's all these accommodations she's had to make, because even something as simple as bending down to tie her shoe can pop the leak and make it worse. So she's desperately hoping that over time her dura, basically the material in your spine that's holding everything together, is gonna heal, and possibly there could be some medical breakthrough that could facilitate that. But in the meantime, she's had to just accept this. We have limited means of expression. We have limited words to describe how that could feel, the idea of acceptance, because a lot of people hear that and it sounds like resignation. It sounds like failure. But it's actually the breakthrough. In the one video I was talking about kind of the idea of that benzo withdrawal. I'm always going to be in the orbit of benzo withdrawal because of the intensity of this experience I've had and kind of the light it's shown on my nervous system, you know, what I'm truly like. It's revealed a lot of things to me. And I think it's made it so my nervous system's also even more sensitized. And at the end of the day, understanding that, learning that, accepting that is incredibly important. It's not something to be looked at as giving in or failure or hopeless. It's about having a certain peace with yourself. I hope that makes sense, because it's very hard, I think, to hear stuff like this and take it as a positive thing. I often end up here in this little alleyway after the beach walk because there's this tamarind tree and palms over here, and then there's the eucalyptus trees here, and then there's these power lines running down the middle, which are really great perching spots for birds. And there's been a lot of visitors lately, a lot of visitors that we don't normally see, and they've come specifically to this little corridor here. So I'm gonna hang out here for a little while. Maybe the next video I'm gonna do out in the bush a little bit more, not just on the beach every time. We will go out into the very green at the moment because of the end of the rainy season, the very green sort of countryside. Anyway, let's see who we see this morning. Oh, I see a little sunbird there. The name of that sunbird is actually Beautiful Sunbird. And it's got kind of this iridescent plumage with a red strip. I'll try to see if I can capture my phone here. Anyway, you guys have a fantastic day. See you soon.